Hello, everybody. Welcome to our webinar entitled Emotional Intelligence for Public Speaking. It feels unusual because I feel like I'm preaching in the desert. I'm not seeing anybody, but everybody is seeing me. So I'm going to try to do this. This is my first webinar with the American Center in Moscow. So let's get started. So the next slide. I just want to say thank you to the American Center for this opportunity to share my experience, especially at this time of coronavirus. And I wish that we can all use this time to the best so that once the crisis is over, we are out of the tunnel, we can use the skills and the knowledge we've gotten online and move on. You hear me? Oops. Okay, thank you. All right, so my name's Alan Akamba, and I'm a petroleum engineer originally, and right now I live here in Moscow. I provide really leadership trainings to a few corporate clients. This is probably the fifth or sixth time I do a webinar with the American Center. I also work with a few universities, and when I was back in Canada, as you can see on the screen, I consulted with the company called Canadian Tire. So this is really part of a leadership series, and today we are talking about emotional intelligence in public speaking. Now, like I said, the consultation I have here is called Lead Curve, and I have a few consultations I run here, negotiations, leadership. All right, now I'm going to start with a quotation. The greater our knowledge increases, the greater our ignorance unfold. John F. Kennedy. President Kennedy made this statement back in the 60s. And my understanding of this is that the more you get to know about yourself, if we are talking about self-development, the more you get to know about yourself, the more you understand how much you didn't know about yourself. It's kind of tricky. So we are talking about public speaking today, okay? It's a very, very important skill to have, in private life, in public life, in business, in politics. So really, if you have goals for the future, you really want to take public speaking serious. Now, public speaking, of course, has it's a personal thing, and there's a lot of emotions involved. So we're going to look at the emotional side of it today. So really, today will be about self-awareness. In other words, how do you know yourself? Okay. How aware are you there? I'm sorry, there's a typo there. It should be awareness with WA. And of course, it's no good knowing about yourself if you cannot do anything about it. Once you know about yourself, how do you handle yourself? How do you manage yourself? It's kind of like going to see the doctor. He has to come up with a diagnosis, and then he says, hey, go buy this tablet. So when you're on stage, there's really a lot of emotions that you're dealing with. And that's what we're going to look at today. We're going to look at the brain types. We're going to look at what we call an emotional intelligence speaker. And really, the takeaway will be a couple of tools you can use in your very next speech to improve your delivery and to achieve your speaking goal. And talking about goal, the goal today is really to leverage your emotions and achieve your speech goals. In other words, use your emotions to your advantage so that you achieve your goal. It could be a salesperson, you're trying to sell something. It could be a politician, you have an agenda. It could be you're making your funding, trying to raise money for something. You could be pitching for your startup. Again, like I said, after the crisis is over. So control your emotion, manage your emotion, be aware of them first, then handle them and achieve your speaking goal. So let's go down to the basics first. Okay, I try to keep it simple in 1 hour. Now you must have heard about, by the way, before we continue, I would welcome questions, and I'm opening them here. If you have a question, in order to make it a little bit more engaging, please type your question here. Don't wait until I finish, okay? And I will be happy to take a pause and answer your question. Type them here. This way it's more engaging, especially because I can't see you. Now, sorry, I'm just trying to manage my screen here so I can see comments. Now, you must have heard about the left brain and right brain thing, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. It's basically about the analytical side, which is logic. The left brain, there are people that just talk about maths and numbers and figures, and they're very smart and clever. And then there's the right side, the emotional side. You know, some people are more emotional, more sensitive. Maybe they easily cry or they easily get upset. So, of course, this is in us. So as a speaker, you are for sure affected by the brain in your head. Now, let's look at how it affects us. Now, first of all, we say emotional intelligence. So there are two things, emotions and intelligence. What is an emotion? It's basically a chemical, right? You know, think about it, adrenaline, you know, when you are afraid, you know, a chemical is released into your bloodstream and you start running. Some other people say another definition is that emotions are impulses to take care of life. For example, man, I feel bored. It's a feeling. So because I feel bored, that feeling makes me do something. I gotta go out. Okay. Or you feel cold, or you feel anxious. You call someone. So the emotion really is what drives the action. And there are plenty of examples we can think of. Again, like I said, feel free to type any question at any time here. If you have any example, you can also type. Typical emotions include, fear. If you're a speaker, you're on stage. Okay. If you are afraid, you might be nervous. You might feel nervous. You might feel scared. You might feel embarrassed. Okay. On the other hand, if you are prepared, if you're strong, you might feel confident. You might feel excited. Okay, so these are different emotions that we experience on stage as a speaker. Now, on the other hand, intelligence is really the ability to think. Okay, the capacity to make sense out of things. Let me give you an example. A few years ago, I was in Calgary, Canada, and I went to attend an oil and gas conference because I'm from oil and gas. So I had my badge, and I wasn't quite sure which room was mine. And so I walked into a room, and there was somebody talking, and I wasn't quite sure. And I asked, "Hey, what is the topic about?" And he gave me a name that was not what I was looking for. So that's basically thinking. That's analysis. So I understood that this is not where I'm supposed to be, and I walked out. So this is the ability to make sense, to make logic, and analyze. Okay, we have the first question here. Thank you very much. It's from Larissa, Orthodox. What was your most embarrassing moment? How did you relax? Okay, Larissa, thank you very much. This is coming down. I'll tell you a story about it. Larissa is asking what was my most embarrassing moment. I have a slide for that, and I will tell you a nice story, Larissa. Thank you for your question. Now, because we have emotions, like I said, because we have two brain types, on the next slide, you will see 3 speaker types. Okay, so of course, there are people who are extremely smart. They have a lot of a lot of intelligence. They bring you facts, they bring you arguments to explain uh, a thesis or a position, for example. And then there are people who are very emotional. For example, if you take a child who is shy and you ask him to stand in front of people and to tell a story, they might start crying. So these are kind of the two extremes. Analytical speakers who have no emotions, just fact, 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 data, 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 as TJ Walker says. And then there are people who are just overwhelmed. They can't take it. It's just the runaway. What we want is to be in the middle, to be emotionally intelligent speakers. In other words, you want to be able to leverage your emotions, to control your emotions, and use them to achieve your speech goal. Okay, so you're in the middle. Now, this takes us to the definition of emotional intelligence. As I said already, I'm going to read this one. Emotional intelligence is usually abbreviated EQ. Okay, some people write it EI. So EQ is your ability to recognize how your emotions govern your decisions, your thinking, and your speech, not in this case. In other words, when you are speaking to people, your emotions will affect you. Okay, they should not happen to you. You should rather control them when you're on stage speaking to people. So the first tool we're going to look at today, in order not to be overwhelmed, in order to be able to achieve your speaking goal, is you should be aware of your emotional temperature. Okay. Now, what does that mean? This takes me to Larissa's question. Larissa Orthodox. So Larissa, let me tell you a story, and to everybody out there. A few weeks ago, and I have my dear friend Eugene, who must be looking at me right now. I was invited to give a keynote speech at an event, and it was around a station where I had never been, and I miscalculated the time. Basically, I arrived late. So, as I arrived at the building, I started running, and you can imagine, you arrive there, I felt hot because it was hot. I just took off my jacket, so I felt hot. I felt embarrassed, okay, and uncomfortable. I felt like I had let the person who invited me down. So my emotional temperature at that moment was not good, okay. I was emotionally in a bad place to give a speech. All right, so you don't want to arrive late. Now, emotional temperature actually, so it means that what is your emotional state at the moment when you're going to give a speech? Okay, did you just have a row? Did you quarrel with your girlfriend or with your colleague? If you are if you are upset, angry, it's going to affect your speech delivery. And so you want to be aware of that, because once you're aware of that, you can do something about it. You can maybe calm down, and we're going to look at some techniques in the coming slides on how you can handle that. On the flip side, if you are ecstatic, if you are too happy, it's also going to affect your delivery. Imagine you start jumping now. I just got a promotion, or I signed a great deal and I made a lot of money. It might be inappropriate. You're overly excited, and that can also affect your delivery accordingly. So that's what you want to know, your emotional temperature. Okay, take a pause. Know where you are at the moment, and then think about your speech goal. So that's the first tool. Know your emotional temperature. Now, let me explain. In the next slide, you will see the life-threatening situation. I'm going to do a little bit of neuroscience here, okay? Nothing too advanced, but it's just to explain how emotions work. So imagine you are driving, life-threatening situation. So you're driving and somebody cuts you off at a high speed. what happens? Instinctively, your right foot will press, sorry, your left foot will press the brake pedal. Okay, this is instinctive. So you have an instant of fright. It's scary. This happens instinctively. Whether you want it or not, you're afraid. It takes a fraction of a second. At that moment, like I said, emotions are chemicals. A chemical is released into your body from a brain, from a place in your brain called the amygdala. So that chemical that's released tells the body we need sugar, okay, insulin, okay. So your muscles will contract. You press the gas pedal. This is the part that you don't control. It's similar to a situation where maybe a dog attacks you or a wild animal attacks you. It's instinctive. Okay, it's the survival. Now, after the car passes and drives away, now you come back to yourself and you say, wait a minute, I shouldn't keep swearing. I shouldn't keep yelling at him. He's gone. Let me calm down. Life goes on. This is when the frontal cortex, number 2, takes over. Now the frontal cortex says, hey, calm down. You apologize to the people sitting behind. I'm sorry. And then you drive away. So this is an illustration of how our brain works. One part is absolutely instinctive, controlled by the amygdala. There's nothing you can do about it. But the other part is what you really have control over, is the frontal cortex. It's like the CEO, the chief executive officer of your brain. And now if you take this similarity to a speaking context, let me just see, lost my slide here, bear with me. So if you're online, you will see the speaker forgot line. The exact same situation happens. You're talking to people, you prepared your speech, and then bang, you forget your line. What happened? In that moment, you panic. A hormone is released by the amygdala, the same way as if you were driving. Let me finish my point. So now you panic. If you panic, the audience will notice that. Once the audience notices that, now you're focusing on the mistake rather than focusing on the message, which actually will be another tool. So what you should do instead is, in that moment, calm down and try to take back control over the situation. Okay? So I think that focus on the message. Now there is a question here. Let me just take a quick look from Irina. Leverage your emotions. Okay, Irina is asking, thank you, Irina. Leverage your emotions means take control over those emotions. We're going to watch a video, and after that video, I think it's going to be clearer. Irina, bear with me here. Aggie Pucheva, what does it mean if you stop having feelings? Like, for example, a feeling of love, shame, fear, life-threatening. No, Aggie, thank you for your question. Aggie is asking, what does it mean if you stop having feelings, like feeling of love, shame? No, emotional intelligence doesn't mean you stop having feelings. It means that you're aware of them, you acknowledge them, you accept them, the part that is like a reflex, and then you start thinking about it while they are there. What do I do about it? Okay, if I'm angry, should I break the window? Or should I just calm down? So I hope that explains it. Alexa, I'm studying ancient Chinese philosophy. I try to prove that at that time there was an analytical geometry. All my work goes without any success because everybody wants to work using an old paradigm. We are going to look at the dialogue between the amygdala and the frontal cortex. Okay, so I think that it might be a good idea to watch the first video. Robert, if you can just play the video number 2. Before you start video, just hang on. This is just to give you the context, this is a world champion of public speaking, Aaron Beverly, 2019 world champion, and he analyzes his own speech, and he talks about what was going on because he made some two mistakes there during his speech, and he talks about how he was caught up in his own head. He focused on the mistake instead of focusing on the message. So this is the moment when you should establish a dialogue between your amygdala, the center for reflexes and emotions, and the frontal cortex, which is the center for conscious actions. So let's just look at the video. Hopefully it makes more sense, and then we come back after that. Please, Robert, go ahead with the video.
A few words can do something extraordinary. I'm in my Toastmasters club. It's time for the best part of the meeting that every Toastmaster loves, table topics. The topics master stood on the stage. He called out, "May I please have the first volunteer?" There was one hand, but that hand was special because it belonged to a young, soft-spoken young lady named Michelle.
So much to talk about here. I may look calm and poised, but in my mind at this point, I'm thinking, oh my God, I messed up big time. Firstly, I messed up the line, "the best part of the meeting." This was a stumble that I could not hide, and I started thinking about, oh no, will the judges mark me down for that? And yeah, the judges probably would, but that should not be where my focus is. This is the part where I was really getting inside of my own head and worrying about the judging instead of worrying about my audience and how my audience was going to take away my message. Secondly, I tripped up when I was introducing the character of Michelle. The actual phrase I had practiced was a shy, soft-spoken young lady named Michelle. And again, I'm thinking in my head, oh no, did the judges catch that too? My focus should not have been on the judges and how they were going to critique me, but instead it should have been focused on delivering the best message to my audience.
Thank you. All right. Hopefully that made sense. Aaron talks about the moment when he made the first mistake, and he was kind of caught up in that moment, thinking, the judge might have caught that grammar mistake, instead of focusing on the audience. Remember, today we are here to talk about emotional intelligence for public speaking. Okay, emotional awareness and and self-management, self-awareness and self-management. In other words, how can you be aware of it? Of when you're about to panic, when you make a mistake on stage, and what do you do in that moment? So if you look at the right on the screen right now, which is called brain dialogue. So as I said, you have the executive center, the prefrontal cortex, PFC. This is where, let me start with the amygdala, sorry. So you have the amygdala, survival mechanism. Okay, the amygdala is responsible for instinctive reactions. It sends a hormone, gives a signal, and a hormone is sent into the body. So if you're on stage and you made a mistake, bam, when you realize it, in that moment you panic. Your heart beats, maybe you start sweating. There's nothing you can do about it. It's going to happen. Now, this is the amygdala. Now, if you look at the executive center or the prefrontal cortex, the PFC, that is the part that controls conscious actions. So what you want to do is establish a conversation between the cortex, the PFC, and the amygdala. You are telling the amygdala, okay, I know you sent that signal. I know it's panic time, but hey, guess what? I'm going to take control of that. Okay, this is happening inside your brain in that moment. And so what the audience sees is somebody who can take control over the situation. You might take a pause. It could be a pause. It could be a paraphrase. Maybe you repeat what you said. So it's at the end of the day, it comes down to practice. Okay, so you will try what works for you, but you want to establish that dialogue. So again, we are not saying you should suppress your emotions, put them in a bottle. Don't say you are angry or happy. No, that's not healthy. You cannot ignore your emotions because they will come out sooner or later. Okay, whether it's in your relationships, at work. Okay, so it's about focusing on your goal, letting the PFC, the frontal cortex, take control of the situation, and you continue your speech because you want to deliver that speech and you have a message for the audience. So Aaron Beverly talked about what he experienced. I hope that answers some questions. And I'm seeing a lot of questions here about ancient China, emotional intelligence. I would like to focus on public speaking, okay? Emotional intelligence for public speaking. At the beginning, I wanted to do a webinar which was just emotional intelligence, but that's so big. You know, there is love, there is work, there is sport. There are so many applications to emotional intelligence. So I decided to narrow down. So if you can focus your questions on the applications of emotional intelligence in public speaking, that would be most relevant for our event today. Now, if we move to the next slide, you will see EQ in life. Okay, EQ in life. So what happens is there are three basic actions. There is feeling, the thinking, and the acting. As you can see, the feeling is associated with the limbic system, the amygdala. Like I said, it's a center in the brain. It starts the process. There's nothing you can do about it. You don't control the limbic systems. It's going to happen whether you like it or not. Next is the cortex. Okay, now I am panicking. Now this guy is not calling me. Now I cannot find the word. The dialogue begins between the cortex and the limbic system. In that moment, what do I do about this? And then the third one is the action. Once the thinking and the feeling have discussed, now the body will do what they have agreed upon. Okay, so it's some people call it TFA. Okay, think, feel, act. It's interesting because emotions affect actions. For example, if you are angry, you stand up and then you go away, for example. Or if you are panicking on stage, then you stumble. Okay? But conversely, actions also affect emotions. Let me give you an example. If you're sitting in your room and you feel bored, you feel tired, you have a certain emotion, you feel bored. If you decide to act differently, because when you feel bored or when you feel depressed, what do you normally do? You frown, happy, because the feeling dictates the action. But the action can also influence the feeling. So if you're feeling depressed, you say, hey, I'm not going to sit in my room like this and let my emotions dictate my actions. I'm going to go out there and run. Do you think you can start running and jumping outside and feel depressed? Not possible. Not possible. So, similarly, when you're on stage, when that moment hits, when you have that moment of panic, something happened, and you're establishing the conversation, you want to take the action that goes against that feeling. And in this case, you want to continue your speech, deliver the speech. So these three things are interrelated: the think, the feel, and the act. I hope that makes more sense now. So if you go to the next stage, it's the same thing. Emotional intelligence on stage, exactly the same thing which I just explained. I hope this makes a bit more sense than before we watch the video. I have a question here. Hi, Alan. This is from, if you can write your name, that would be great. The TV Soul. Okay. Hi, the TV Soul. Hi, Alan. How to practice emotional intelligence successfully without feeling that we are suppressing our emotions? How does one transform emotions without suppression? Again, this is a very big, not abstract. It's such a big question. I would like to focus on public speaking. Now, let me try to answer that question in the context of public speaking. So, let me read that again. How to practice emotional intelligence successfully without feeling that we are suppressing our emotions. So in other words, how can you be emotional intelligence and at the same time ignore your emotions? First of all, emotional intelligence has 5 pillars. It's self-awareness, self-awareness, self-management, relationship management, and empathy. So today we are only doing 2 of them, right? So we are talking about self-awareness and self-management. Now, you are not ignoring your emotions. Without feeling that you're suppressing. It's actually the opposite. Okay, the TV saw. It's actually the opposite. You accept your emotions. Hey, I know I'm panicking now. You are aware of it. You're embracing it. You are not denying it. Because if you deny, it's like going to the doctor. How can a doctor give you a prescription if he doesn't know your problem? It's impossible. So first of all, you accept, you acknowledge that emotion. I'm panicking now. I'm angry now. Okay, next, what do I do about it? So it's actually the opposite. Emotional intelligence is about acknowledging your emotion and then taking action to manage them. Okay, I hope that helps. Thank you. The TV saw. Again, please try to focus, try to ask questions related to public speaking and how we can apply emotional intelligence in public speaking. And again, today we are talking about two aspects of emotional intelligence: self-awareness and self-management. Okay, there are some others like relationship management, okay, and empathy, and some people even have called motivation. We are not looking at them today. Okay, maybe we're going to have a subsequent webinar to discuss that. So this was the second tool. Second tool is focus on the message. Okay, focus on the message when you're on stage. Okay, by establishing that dialogue between the cortex and the amygdala, and then move on. For actors, Denzel Washington, Brad Pitt. When they go on stage, they go on set. They might make a mistake, but they will probably improvise, extemporize, and you might not even notice that. A great actor or a great speaker, when he forgets their line, the audience doesn't notice. They just move on. But again, it comes with practice, and emotional intelligence can help here. Now, the next tool is beware of how the audience perceives you. Okay, it's the next slide, which is called know. I'm sorry for my typo. Know how the audience perceives you. Okay, it's actually no mistake there. Know how the audience perceives you. Are you aware? Remember, today is about self-awareness. Are you aware about how they perceive you? Are you a source of hope? Are you the solution to their problems? How do they perceive you? It's all about self-awareness. Now we're going to touch a little bit on pathos, which is empathy, which has to do with how can you feel them? Can you put yourself in their shoes? This is not really the focus of our talk today. We are more about ethos here. Ethos is about the feelings. There's a question here. Let me see. Okay, thank you for answering. Okay, you're welcome, the TV soul. I hope that answered your question. So, do you know? Okay. Hi, Irina. I know this lady, Gutovaya. Hi, Irina. What is your emotional temperature right now? How do you feel without an audience? That's a great question. My emotional temperature right now, I feel relaxed. It's unusual. I don't feel stressed. I just feel unusual. I feel that I hope that I'm able to bring some value to your lives out there during this difficult time, and I take pride in that. So I feel excited that I'm sharing something that I learned. Actually, I learned about emotional intelligence when I was contemplating my divorce. The TV show you asked the question. There were times when it's not a very good thing to say, but it's true. There were times when I just hated my ex-wife. And I was raised in a Christian home by Christian traditions, and we were taught that it's a sin, it's not good. So I was trying to deny it, like, hey, how can you hate someone? And I was trying to tell myself I don't have those feelings, but I had to come to terms with the fact that no, there were times when I just didn't want to see her. And once I understood that, I needed to own that, and I needed to look at my feelings, look at myself, and now decide based on my values, what am I going to do about that? I was able to actually have a very, very peaceful divorce because I accepted my feelings. Of course, I had psychological and spiritual assistance, but on a personal level, emotional intelligence has helped me. So, Irina, I feel great, especially when I read your question. I feel wonderful. Thank you. Okay, I'm trying to keep track of time here. We have 15 minutes. Question 8 from Alexa. Okay, I ask another way. Why I should believe you, Alan, when you tell me something you do not know good. So this person is asking me, why should I believe what you're saying if you don't know about that very well? Look, we are all learning, and that's a valid point. I don't know everything, Alexa. I think we are all in this life, in this planet, to learn something every day. Sometimes even you can have the student who becomes better than the teacher. So I'm not saying I know everything about it. All I'm doing here today is to help people become better speakers. So, and I hope you are talking about, Alexa, I hope you are talking about public speaking. Okay, again. If you ask me questions about public speaking, I'll be able to give you a much better answer. But again, I don't know everything. Sorry, I might come back to these questions later. Okay, because we are trying to keep track of time. We have one more video to watch, and then I will come back to these questions, if you don't mind. So now the next tool, the last tool for today is, let me see. Yes, it's the last tool is know how your audience perceives you. Okay, how do they feel about you? No, sorry. Do you know how they perceive you? Do you know what they feel about you? That's the question, because that helps you deliver your speech better, okay, and achieve your goals. And that comes down to knowing your audience. We don't have a lot of time here to talk about all those aspects, but why don't we just go to the next video? Let me just give a context here, Robert, just a minute. Now, this is a speech by probably the best or one of the best public speakers in the world, President Barack Obama. So President Obama was speaking in California about immigration reform. And then there was a heckler in the crowd. A heckler is somebody who stops him. Somebody started interrupting him, and the president could not continue his speech. Now, this is a situation that can happen where you can get upset, okay? But then you have to be able to understand what are their motivation. Do you know how they perceive you, right? So this is very, very important also, and a very important aspect in public speaking, the question and answer session. Some people get really nervous. So let's just watch this last clip, and then we'll come back in a couple of minutes. Robert.
We're going to grow our economy. We're going to make our country more secure. We'll strengthen our families. And most importantly, we will live up. Most importantly, we will live up. Most importantly, we will live up to our character as a nation. That's exactly what we're talking about. Yeah.
Every single day.
That's why we're here.
President, please use your executive order to halt deportation for all 11.5 undocumented immigrants in this country right now.
What we're
we
trying.
agree that we need to pass comprehensive immigration reform. At the same time, you have a power to stop deportation for all.
Actually, I don't. And that's why we're here.
I need your help.
Okay.
Stop deportation! Stop deportation!
Thank you. All right. What I'd like to do. No, don't worry about it, guys. Okay, let me finish. Let me. How about these guys don't need to go. Let me finish. I respect the passion of these young people because they feel deeply about the concerns for their families. Now, what you need to know when I'm speaking as President of the United States, and I come to this community, is that if, in fact, I could solve all these problems without passing laws in Congress, then I would do so. But we're also a nation of laws. That's part of our tradition. And so the easy way out is to try to yell and pretend like I can do something by violating our laws. And what I'm proposing is the harder path, which is to use our democratic processes to achieve the same goal that you want to achieve. But it won't be as easy as just shouting. It requires us lobbying and getting it done. So, so for those of you who are committed to getting this done, I am going to march with you and fight with you every step of the way to make sure that we are welcoming every striving, hard-working immigrant who sees America the same way we do. As a country where no matter who you are or what you look like or where you come from, you can make it if you try. And if you're serious about making that happen, then I'm ready to work with you. But it is going to require work. It is not simply a matter of us just saying we're going to violate the law. We're going to grow our economy.
Okay, so before I comment on that video, I want to come back a little bit to the question that Alexa asked. So again, I'm talking about things that I'm practicing myself. I'm not perfect in emotional intelligence, far from it. There are times when I go emotional and I do things I regret. So it's really a practice, Alexa. Now, Aji Pichova asked a question, and she's saying, it's self-control and self-improvement instead of letting your emotions distract and fail you. Because of emotional intelligence, you use emotions to your advantage and control the situation. Exactly. Thank you very much, Agi Pechova. She's asking a question. She's making a comment about public speaking. I like it. Yes, the goal today is leverage. The main goal, as I said at the beginning, is leverage your emotion so that they help you achieve your speech goal. Okay? You have emotions, don't deny it, but how can you use them to help you deliver your speech and achieve your goal? That's what we're doing today. So try to ask questions related to public speaking. Now, let me comment on that video a little bit. We have about 10 minutes. You know, in the perspective of the third tool, the third tool is you should know how the audience perceives you. Now, I don't know the sound, whether you understood everything there. The president was talking about immigration reform, and there was a heckler in the back who started talking and interrupted him. He was frustrated, and he was saying, stop the deportation. I have my people here. The government of the U.S. government wants to send them back home. He was frustrated. At the beginning, the president wanted to continue that, but finally he had a pause. If you saw that pause, very important, that's when he shifted. That was his moment of brain dialogue. And he listened to this guy. I think in that moment, what happened was he felt like this guy is frustrated. That guy was seeing him as the solution to his problems, because he said, you can just sign an executive order and there will be no problem. And then the president told him, actually, I can't do that. And if you could see the emotion dynamics, you see, when you're talking to someone as a speaker, you should make them understand, hey, we are on the same team. This is not a confrontation. I am with you. So at the beginning, the atmosphere was pretty negative. He was aggressive. And then you saw how the whole atmosphere changed when the president started explaining to him, I am here for you. We have to work. It's not actually what you think. I am here for you. We are on the same team. And if you want to listen, if you want to be with me, I will march with you and we're going to achieve what you want. And he was talking to you. And that's one thing you have to learn to do as a public speaker. Talk directly to people. If you know their name, call them by name. You saw him, the president turned around. The president understood how that guy saw him. That guy saw him as his hope, as the solution to his problem for the deportation issue. So, know your audience. These are all emotional issues. You can never be a great speaker if you cannot connect emotionally, with your audience. So, that's the last tool for today. There's so many others, but I just chose this once. Let me now go to the questions. Question 9, the TV saw. This is a very important question, very interesting. Listen up, please. I like it because it's about emotion, it's about public speaking. What if a person can't control his or her body nervousness? For example, the voice is shaking, the jaws feel weird while you speak publicly, even though you feel quite confident about the subject of your talk. So the question is, sometimes you know your subject, you know exactly what you want to talk about, but you still cannot control, your body. What can you do? Well, thank you so much, the TV saw. Great question. This comes down to practice. Okay. Here is my advice. Use your video. Use your smartphone. Take selfies of yourself. Okay, I have a selfie stick here. Put it on a selfie stick. Record yourself. Or just hold it in your hand. Record yourself and study your own speech. How many times have you watched yourself speaking on video? Because then you can see yourself, you can see your body language, you can see the moment when things start getting out of control, and you can see yourself in that moment. And now, after that, take one thing you don't like. For example, my jaws were shaking. You're going to say, okay, I'm going to shoot myself again with the exact same message, but I will try to not shake my jaw. Choose one thing that you feel like is a weakness and try to work on one thing at a time, not two things. Also, take short footages. Don't shoot 6 minutes. That will be too long. Shoot 30 seconds and then analyze those seconds if it's about public speaking. Now, there are other solutions. You might consult a psychologist if it's really a psychological problem, but I think we're talking about public speaking here. Practice, practice, practice. You will make it. You are not alone. When I was a teenager, I was very, very shy. You will not believe it, the TV saw. And I decided to take a course on theater arts. Yes, I did theater. And 6 months later, I was a different person. If you do it, you will ace it. Agi Pichova. So we are wrapping up here. We'll be finishing very soon. So, yes, someone says, Agi Pichova, we should teach these things at school. Thank you. Great idea. Do you think that, what do you think about emotions in online learning? Can it be productive given the fact that we can't share emotions energy with effectively through real contact with audience? The question from Clarence90 is, can I connect? Can I send my emotions to you online, virtually? My answer, I think it's a question. How do you feel? Do you feel like I can connect with you? I think, yeah. It's like you go to the movie. Have you ever been in a cinema and you watch a movie and you cry? Well, guess what? The actor who is shooting in that movie is sleeping. It's just a recording. It's just a video material. Of course, you can connect emotionally, virtually, even over an audio, even without seeing the person. This is, I don't know, this is energy, this is emotions. And I think that it's probably a bit harder, a bit more difficult. But yes, yes, you can, in my opinion. Anna Susova. Hi, Anna. Why all these proactive, provocative questions? The speaker is just sharing his experience. Thank you for giving us interesting examples, commentary. Yeah, thank you, Anna. Well, I understand them. People are asking legitimate questions, and thank you for asking the questions. That tells me that people are not sleeping behind the screen there. And as I said, I try to share what I have. I don't have all the answers. I'm not the Almighty God. I share what I have, like I told you, based on my own experience. Before 2015, I didn't know about emotional intelligence, and it helped me during my divorce. So I'm sharing what I hope can help you. Okay, if you come away with one tool here that will help you become a better speaker, I'm happy. That's a great example video, Barack. Great nurse. Thank you. At least I am interesting. I'm not at the opera just sitting and listening. Thank you, Alexa. With TV, so what's the difference between public speaking online, public speaking in person, in your opinion? Should the speaker change anything during public, which is so popular nowadays? So TV Soul is asking, is it the same online and in real life? I think it's the same in terms of the delivery. Now I'm looking at the camera. I'm establishing eye contact. If I do this, you will think Alan is not talking to me, or this. The same thing. Using my voice. Now that's the similarity. Now in contrast, there are some differences. Of course, online you have a lot of technicalities. For example, I have a mic. If I don't have a microphone here, you cannot hear me. I have a lot of lights here. Okay, let me just switch off one light, for example. Look, you see, it's different. So a lot of technical things they have to do online, the speed of your internet. But I believe that the fundamental skills, the human skills, especially when it comes to emotional intelligence, is the same thing. When I smile to you now, you get the same feeling, I believe, as if I was with you. That's, we should be wrapping up already. Such a great tip. Thank you, Aliona. Thank you very much for this presentation. Thank you for coming, Aliona. Great piece of advice. Taking notes. Oh, great. Take notes. The TV saw. Thank you. Yes, you can, but it's much better in real life, not online, I think. Yeah, I hope I could do this in real life, but coronavirus. One more thing I wanted to say, you have to be authentic. You have to tell your audience the truth. Remember, Obama told this guy, I can do this, we can do it together, but it's not going to be easy. So you have to be authentic, genuine, and honest with your audience. And that gives you credibility, actually, and it's called ethos. We can discuss that another time. Alan, thank you. Thank you so much, Anna Susova. Thank you so much, Alan, for the information, for the tips, answers. It was helpful. A smile back is true. Thank you for answering. Thank you. I don't know if you can see this. All right. So I'm just going to wrap up here. So today we talked about emotional intelligence and how you can use your emotion, how you can leverage your emotions to be a better public speaker. And we talked about self-awareness and self-management. And we learned 3 tools here. The first tool was know your emotional temperature, know how you feel in the moment. The next one was focus on the message. Okay, when you screw up, don't panic. Establish that dialogue between the cortex and the amygdala. And the third one was know how the audience perceives you. It's all self-awareness, because when you know all those things, Now you can take action. I hope this was helpful. I wish you a great evening there. Thank you to the American Center. And stay safe. If you go out, wear a mask. Goodbye. Thank you.